Okay, welcome to this section 6 video from A.L. Basham's The Bodhisattva, the chapter found in the Buddhist tradition by Dabari. Let's read it and analyze it. Christians and Jews cannot fail to note resemblances to the concept of the suffering servant in Christianity and to the servant passages of Isaiah 53, 3-12. It is by no means impossible that there was some Christian influence on Mahayana Buddhism, for Christian missionaries were active in Persia very early, and it became a center from which Nestorian Christianity was diffused throughout Asia. From the middle of the 3rd century AD, Persian influence in Afghanistan and northwest India, which had always been felt, was intensified with the rise of the Sasanian Empire, and it was these regions that Mahayana Buddhism developed and flourished. Thus, Christian influence cannot be ruled out. Okay, so what's happening in this passage? Is Basham correct in assuming that Christians would see resemblances between the vicarious sacrifice of the Bodhisattva and Isaiah 53? What does he say in the passage? Christian Jews cannot fail to notice resemblances. They cannot fail to the concept of suffering Savior in Christianity and to the servant passages of Isaiah 53. Really? Is this the case? Perhaps assuming that Christians and Jews interpret the passage in the same way, which is a stretch. There is a big debate as to whether Isaiah 53 should be interpreted as referring to an individual person or collectivized to refer to the whole of the nation of Israel. And so Jewish commentators generally have collectivized their interpretation of Isaiah 53. Christian commentators have individualized their interpretations of the text. So resemblances, yes, but once you look at the detail, there are problems. Is Basham correct that it's by no means impossible that there was some Christian influence on Mahayana Buddhism? Now, this phrase, by no means impossible, no means impossible. Well, it's possible that there's a purple dragon flying around the sun, or that there's a chocolate teapot. When we talk about reality, we have to think, what could possibly exist? Well, a whole range of things could possibly exist. Unicorns could possibly exist, but they don't, and it's conceivable that these things could exist, but it's not that they actually exist, or is it even feasible that they exist? Is it even feasible that's really the question, for Christian influence on Mahayana to happen in the way that he's envisaging from the Nestorian Empire? So it's possible, but is it feasible? Is it incredible, in the sense that it's possible, yes, but is it actual? Is it even feasible? The thesis that the key influence on Mahayana is not the Buddha supernaturally. Remember, he is a secular commentator who denies the supernatural. Any notion either of religious experiences of the Buddha during a religious revival experience, or some kind of visitation of the Naga spirits who kept the hidden teaching of the Buddha and then revealed it to Nagarjuna. But Christians traveling, but the idea that that's Christians traveling the emergent Silk Route as Nestorian missionaries beginning in the 2nd century, that is actually quite possible, and better feasible. It's quite feasible in philosophical terms. Just how strong is the thesis? Or is it just a kind of parallelomania? Now, this is a criticism of the kind of source criticism that he's doing. The great exponent of source criticism was Rudolf Bultmann. And this was a fad that would have been very influential in the 1950s and 60s as he was getting going, writing his stuff, where you would make connections all over the show, however tenuous and incredulous the connections were. Basham does not develop any suggested links. Where's the missing links? What exactly? Who exactly was it? That's what we want to ask. Now, we could speculate in a way that he doesn't. For example, in the south of India, you have the church of in Kerala of the Church of Thomas, St. Thomas Christians of South India. Certainly in the 2nd century, there's good evidence of that. And there is evidence of Nestorian mission. But in the north, the robustness of the influence doesn't really grow to the 6th or 7th century. So it's too late to influence the Mahayana idea of the Bodhisattva. One scholar, Larson, 1967, rejects the claim. Another scholar, Tharpa, in 1990, agrees with it. I wonder what your view is. Is it possible? Is it feasible? Is it actual that Christians influenced Mahayana Buddhism? So in this section 6, we've looked at this phrase, the suffering servant. Is the Bodhisattva like the suffering servant of Isaiah 53 and the prediction of the Messiah as an individual, not collective, but an individual who by vicarious suffering helps in his sacrificial and offering others? He pays the penalty. He takes their sin, as Christians believe, by dying in the place of the people as an act of vicarious suffering, as a substitute, as in penal substitution. See if you can learn this term. Section 6.